All right, welcome to the third and final game of the evening. Up this time is Dragon Saddle Melee, which is a fancy way of saying joust.
Joust was Ostrich Saddle Melee.
I guess another way of putting it is Dragon Ass. Because much like Bird Ass, you hit your competition with your ass. I guess it's like technically your feet, maybe? Like, I don't know. That's what it always looked like to me and to others. Anyway, so yeah, the gameplay mechanics here are very heavily inspired by Joust, but obviously you can see there's a few differences. First of all, the aesthetic is, ironically enough, I'd say that 80s new wave retro Tron.
So futuristic it's retro.
Yeah. Which is decidedly not what we had in the 80s with these games. If you remember the actual Joust, you were an ostrich. You were a guy riding an ostrich, and you had to kill other ostriches. Or its most famous clone, a balloon fight. You were a guy with balloons, and you destroyed birds.
Or other guys with balloons, yeah.
Yeah. So it had a very, sadly, there was no Tron Joust. Also, you'll note that thanks to the miracle of modern technology, the board is much bigger. It's more than a single screen, which is, I'm not sure all they could have mustered in the early to mid 80s arcade cabinet. But it's what we got.
Mm-hmm.
And that I honestly don't really care for it.
Well, I feel like in this kind of game, I'll rephrase that. I feel like in Joust specifically, you actually benefit from being able to see what all of your opponents are doing perfectly at all times, assuming you can focus on that.
Right. I mean, so because the playfield is much bigger, the game will compensate by having, so many more enemies on screen than Joust could ever muster. I suppose the good thing is they're very brain dead. The AI isn't great. So what it does in compensation for that is two things. First of all, there are 4 kinds of stages, 4 waves, if you will, or at least 4 kinds. There's the battle stage, which is straight up kill the enemy, destroy all the monsters. There's the portal stage, that is, you gotta destroy the portals before the monsters spawn. There's the fire stage, in which the arena heats up and you've got to not touch any of the girders or whatever these platforms are. And there's what they call the obstacle stage. It's avoiding electric walls. And also punctuated in between that are bonus stages where if you capture a girder with your dragon, you get an extra life. And the other way it ramps up the difficulty is more along the lines of, say, asteroids or missile command. The monsters will get faster and faster, and they will get smarter. And by the second or third rotation, things get a lot harder. Another thing you will notice is the inclusion of weapons. You have 2 weapon slots that you can hold various projectiles. There's the white gun, there's the purple gun, which is a bit more heat-seeky. There's that purple hexagon, which bounces around and flies everywhere. There's the flamethrower. a few other power-ups I'm not remembering offhand. Right, the crossbow. Yeah, that's the purple shot. And I'll be honest, the weapons don't work out as well as I think they would like to have hoped. Here's the thing, given the physics involved, because I'll say the physics, they're joust-like. If you play this, the
so
game,
very floaty.
Yep. Hard to control. So you can't really aim good with these weapons. Maybe good close up in a pinch or something, but it feels more like luck. Especially with the more straightforward, literally projectiles. They're a nice addition, I suppose, but they don't. They're not the game changer you'd think they'd be. I suppose that might be a good thing considering the source material. I don't know. Like, I just didn't really care for the weapons all that much. So, worth noting, in spite of all the press materials here, really emphasizing the online PvP mode, which I tried a bit, but it was basically the same. There is a single player mode, which they dub practice, but it's the game, but you don't have to deal with anyone else online. So, and there are no bots. It's just a single player experience. I don't know why they labeled that as practice, but label it did. So it's not a multiplayer only affair. Anyway, as far as iterating and improving on the Joust formula, I don't think it really improves on it. It just maybe more brings it back, brings Joust or the gameplay of Joust into the modern age. Because playing Joust is actually pretty hard. Like, I don't think Joust has hit any of the modern consoles. I think the best you could do is the Midway Origins collection on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. Backwards compatibility on the Xbox, I think. I'm not sure if that particular title got the backwards compatibility. Like I said, Midway back in the day used to put out compilations all the time. I still have a few in a box somewhere. But ever since they went under and all that stuff came under the stewardship of Warner Brothers, it's really hard to get a hold of that. Honestly, you're probably more familiar with Balloon Fight, if only because Nintendo very incessantly insists on including that with every retro system of theirs ever. No. I'm pretty sure Balloon Fight is on the Nintendo Switch Online.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
So, I'm trying to remember if any other games really ripped off the Joust formula back in the day. Nothing's really coming to mind. I'm sure there were, but, they're not games that survive the ages, let's say. And also, considering how old Joust is, I mean, we're talking a game that's rounding about 40 years old. It's pretty interesting to get a game that's so very inspired by Joust, but also willing to do its own thing. I don't think a lot of the updates really panned out the way they wanted to. Like I said, it's as solid as it's fine. But it's like if Joust were actually available to play on modern systems, I'd actually recommend going and playing that because I think that's just a tighter experience. Not just in terms of the screen size, but here's the thing. This game can get a lot more tedious because there's a lot more to do. supersizing everything isn't necessarily the best course of action when it comes to arcade gameplay. I mean, also one of the biggest omission from this game is the lack of a pterodactyl. If you don't know what that is the thing that kept
it's
you.
It's a prehistoric lizard. Then no, I'm kidding.
Okay, that aside, it is the time pressure. It's the you're not going to spend too long in this arena consideration that a lot of arcade games had, because arcade operators didn't necessarily want you on the arcade machine for a long time. So a lot of arcade games had this either nigh invincible or completely invincible monster that would kill you if you took too long. In the pterodactyl's case, it is killable, but it's not easy at all.
Which is arguably the cooler kind, because then when you succeed at it, it's much cooler.
Yeah, like the Xbox 360 version, you got an achievement for killing a pterodactyl. That's kind of how hard. That's kind of how hard it is. And that's about all there is to the game. It's fairly straightforward. Not, it's just got the online and offline modes. And I think the price reflects that. It clocks in at $4.99. For $5, this is an all right purchase. Not amazing. Now, I'll be honest, I've never been the biggest fan of joust and balloon fights, extremely floaty mechanics. But, I can't deny that, joust is an arcade legend, and balloon fight has its place in the Nintendo pantheon. And, I think that's about it on Dragon Saddle Melee. So that'll about do it for this review. And indeed, that'll about do it for this review session. So the week ahead, coming up on, March 2nd, we'll be having John Pickett of Manga Gamer back on the program. We'll be talking about Trinoline Genesis. There's another visual novel he brought up that was extremely not safe for work. As I mentioned time and time again with these conversations, he mentions, here's our most recent release. I'm like, how lewd is it? It's only available on the website, and it's very lewd. Like, you think after this?
Well, we can talk about it. It's just, there's limitations to how much we can actually show of stuff that would get us banned from Twitch.
Yeah, that's why I asked, okay, what about the other? What else you got? And he mentioned Trinoline Genesis, which is a sequel spinoff thing to Trinoline. I think we covered a few sessions ago.
It would be a prequel, but who knows?
Yeah. Having played a few hours, it's kind of like Clanad After, where it's got all the roots, and if you do the love confession, at least you'd think it would be the origins, but I know it's really weird. We'll get into it on Wednesday. Let's see. On Friday, March 4th, we'll be having our good friend Ross Bierly of Ghostlight Games returning to the program. I know. I'm like, it's been...
a bit.
It's been a few years. The short story there is he's been, or rather, Ghostlight Games, they've been busy porting games for other companies. In the past couple of years, and only very recently have they returned to publish an actual title under their own banner. Not surprisingly, it's Mary Skelter 2. If you remember, we actually did a review of this game last season, I believe. Like, not too long ago.
Yeah, I think so.
Like I said, remembering the review, it was, Mary Skelter 2 was pretty close, pretty similar to the first one, just with a few added gimmicks in terms of the
Mary
gameplay.
Sure do know how to skelter.
Right. Yes, I suppose they do. Anyway, so yeah, that's the week ahead. We also do have an episode of MSP happening on Wednesday. Linkara is joining us there. So until then, I shall wish you good gaming.